Have you ever met somebody and you think you're just really good at getting it right? Well, I did yesterday, and I'll tell you about it in a minute. Roll titles. Hi YouTube, Brian James, that Micro Four Thirds guy with you. Almost the end of the month. What date is it today? It is the 30th, so there's only one more day after today in the month of March. 30 days of September, April, June and November, etc. So we've got one more day after today in March, and it's been an interesting month because the light's starting to change, the weather's starting to change a little bit over here in the UK. I've been back from Cyprus for a week and a half, and I'm not quite as depressed as I was this time last week, but I'm close enough. But I did what I quite often do on a Friday. I went out and had a cup of coffee with my friend Paul. Now, my friend Paul is quite a good photographer. I'm really impressed with what he does. But I was looking at some of his photographs yesterday, and he's been doing some black and white photos across in Newcastle. And I haven't asked Paul's permission to share this, so I'm sorry, Paul. I am going to share what I saw yesterday, because he just sort of brushes them off a little bit. He brushes his photos off to a degree. He knows he's got some skills and he knows he's got some talents. But he's done a few exhibitions up to now and done some fabulous, absolutely fabulous nature photographs, landscape photographs, and some nature photographs of birds and things like that. I've done a couple of little photo walks with him out in the past and thoroughly enjoyed it. But yesterday he was showing me some black and white photos which he'd taken in Newcastle. My home city, if you like. And Newcastle's got a few sort of distinct places, an awful lot of really interesting Georgian and Neo-Georgian buildings. It's the home of Granger and Clayton and John Dobson and all these city planners from the late 19th century, and built some fabulous buildings both in Newcastle and down in London with some amazing styling, and basically set the ground map for the city of Newcastle. And it's something which has been in my psyche since I was a child, of course, because I've been going around Newcastle since I was a baby, almost being taken around Newcastle. But Paul's not from Newcastle. He went across there with a bit of an open mind and went across, and he started showing me some of these photographs. And there was one in particular really caught my eye. Now, as I say, he'd actually been shooting them in colour, but he'd converted a lot to monochrome in post-production. And there was one which really caught my eye, and I was chatting to him, and his wife was there, and she pointed out and said she was enjoying his photographs. But it shone four of the main bridges in Newcastle. Lovely shot, which had the Tyne Bridge in shot, the Swing Bridge down at the bottom of the shot, the High Level Bridge, and the Redhugh Bridge, and they were all in shot, and it was just perfect the way that they were lined up. If he'd had the camera 6 inches higher or 6 inches lower, these bridges wouldn't have lined up so well. They were absolutely perfect, and it wasn't the thing he was taking a photograph of. He was taking a photograph of a statue, and that was his main focus point. But when I saw it, I was just stunned, because yeah, the statue was nicely framed, it was beautifully presented on it. But when I saw the way that the bridges were afterwards, I had to say to him, was this planned? And he said, well, I didn't even notice. But when I looked at it, it couldn't have been better. In fact, if I say 6 inches, if it had been an inch difference in height, higher or lower, I think it would have totally spoiled the illusion. You would have seen a gap between some of the bridges. And another one of the bridges, one of the photographs that he showed me, showed 5 of the bridges. You could actually see all the 4 that I just mentioned. Also, the Scotswood Bridge afterwards. It was fabulous. It really was interesting to see. And I realised then that there are some hidden depths to people's talents, which they're maybe not even aware of, but they just have it. And he didn't realise what he'd done. He didn't realise the effect of it on somebody else. But it was a photograph that, as I say, I would have hunted for that position. I would have hunted to try and get the exact location, to try and get everything perfectly in. It would have taken me hours, and I would have waited for the light to be right. It even had a bit of cloud which came off one of the ground obstacles, and it seemed to carry the line of the ground obstacle on. It was perfect, just the right amount of contrast. Unfortunately, I can't show you the photographs. I'm going to describe them because they're his photographs, and I haven't asked him for them. But my point is this: Some people just seem to have a natural talent. They just seem to get it on. Some people, my friend Paul Thompson, if you see Paul Thompson Photography on YouTube, if I can work out how to put a link to it, I will. I'm not sure if I can put a link to another channel. But Paul Thompson Photography, I've said about him a couple of times on this channel, he's just one of these people. I've known him for a long time, but he just seems to have an eye for landscapes. It just seems to work. It just seems that I know that he does put a lot of work into it, but it seems as though he doesn't have to. It seems that he doesn't have to put a lot of work in. It just seems to come naturally. And I'm envious of those people. Now, I had a conversation about photography generally, because although I have been professional in my time, I've had a photography business, it doesn't necessarily mean to say you're a good photographer. It means you've run a business on it. And there's a big difference, because there's an awful lot of fantastic photographers who've never been professional, and an awful lot of professionals who aren't very good photographers. But what I was good at was doing portrait work, but high volume portrait work, none of the fancy arty sort of stuff. I didn't spend hours taking every little blemish out of somebody's skin and making everything perfect. What I did was try to get a representation, because I was doing a lot of photographs in a short space of time and selling them on. I had to have technical skills. I had to have the ability to capture a moment. I needed to be able to make sure that the person I was taking the photograph of was comfortable, was giving their all, and was going to be happy with the results. I had a talk with Paul's wife yesterday about the fact that she doesn't like being photographed. I hate being photographed. Even though I'm on video all the time, I hate being photographed. And that's because every time I see a photograph of myself, I'm disappointed. But I've had a couple of photographs taken of me in the past where the photographer's got it just right. A young woman called Anna, who I came across a few years ago, took some photographs of me and my family when I was in uniform, when I was in my RAF uniform. And she's got me to a T. And I look at it and I like what I see. I like my facial expression. It's not a big cheesy grin, it's nothing like that. It's just a natural smile. It's the smile that I would like to have. And so, from my point of view, I think I'm actually pretty good at what I do, but it's very limited. I do what I consider to be some really good photographs of churches and small village churches and those sort of buildings. I love the architecture of small village churches, and I think I've got a hook on that. But to go further afield, I don't. And I think the point I'm trying to get at is there is something in each of our brains which will see a situation and register it for good or bad. One of the photos I was looking at, which Paul produced, was the underside of a bridge. Now, it's the sort of photograph which I really love. A lot of geometric shapes, very abstract, because you couldn't see it was the bridge itself. It was the curvature and the way that the light had hit on the lattice work of metal which supports the bridge, and it looked fabulous. Now, I've taken photographs like that before, and photographs of equally good quality and equally interesting for me, but I've often rejected them on the fact that, well, I like them, but surely nobody else would. And I'm really concerned that a lot of the time I'm more bothered about what other people think about my photography than what I think about it myself. And it's only when I see somebody else doing something which I like, I think to myself, yeah, I can actually do that. Why am I so negative on myself? Why am I so restrictive that I would think that nobody else would like it? And even then, why am I that bothered if nobody else likes it, if it's a photograph from me? So this is a very short video. It's just to see what you think. Do you have problems about trying to work out what's a really good photograph for you? And if other people will like it or won't like it, let me know in the comments below. I'm really interested on that. And do you look at other people's work and think to yourself, how did you do that? What prompted you to take that photograph from that place at that time in that way? Was it a deliberate photograph? Or was it something which was a fluke? Or was it something which you just naturally saw without necessarily thinking about it, but it was in the psyche and it made that perfect photograph? Let me know below. I'd really be interested in your views on this, because I do get fascinated by people's photographs. I get fascinated by what constitutes a good or a bad photograph. I look at a lot of magazines, I look at a lot of newsprint, and I look at photographs in there and I think to myself, well, why on earth would you possibly take that photograph? There was a photograph that he did take which just didn't appeal to me. It was a street scene, very, very busy street scene, lots of people. And it's a shot that I've just, in my mind, just rejected totally. Yet I've seen that sort of shot on so many places. So obviously there is a demand for shots like that. They're very much a descriptive shot, they're a magazine type shot. So somebody must be taking those shots and they must appeal to people to be put into magazines. But it just didn't appeal to me. Why is that? Why does that work, that something which can appeal to so many other people has absolutely no appeal to me? Now there's another one which you did of the swing bridge in Newcastle. The swing bridge is a very low bridge, and it swings around its centre point to allow large ships through. It has a central island and the whole bridge swings through 90 degrees and back. And it's quite a colourful bridge. It's mainly white and red. And it's done a shot which had some brickwork to the left. So if you can imagine, you're looking at the bridge, but there was a big period of sandstone brick. And it looked fabulous in monochrome. It really did look striking. There was a lot of contrast there. It really did make the bridge stand out. And the building on the left-hand side really highlighted the shape of the bridge. And I commented to him that I guessed that if it had been taken in colour, it would have been too much of a massive colour. And I guessed that the brickwork on the left, being sandstone, would have probably not worked with it. And he said, well, have a look further on. I think there is the colour version of it, because he'd taken it over. And when I saw the colour version, I was absolutely right. There was nothing stunning about it. It was a nice photograph of the bridge. It was a nice photograph framed by this sandstone building, but the sandstone building colour sort of clashed somewhat. It was wishy-washy, that sort of medium brown, that fawn colour that you get with sandstone. And it didn't jump out at me as a good photograph, yet the monochrome version did. So again, I look at what we're going to be shooting, how we're shooting things, and why some things appeal and why some things don't. The same photograph, just with the colour removed and a few tweaks, went from mundane to magnificent. Do you find again that you can take mundane photos which can turn to magnificence when you alter them? You know, it's something which I've experimented with many times over the years, and even in the post-production there's a skill to choose the right one which is going to look good in monochrome. The other thing I asked him is if he shoots in monochrome at source, and he doesn't. He was shooting them all in colour, and I think that makes things even more difficult, because at least if you're looking through the back, the viewfinder of the camera, and it's set to monochrome, you can see the monochrome shot, then you've got a great idea how it's going to look. Of course, the fact is that when we shot on film cameras, we didn't see it in monochrome. There was no way to put a monochrome display on. Everything was shot in colour on monochrome film. So you didn't know how it was actually going to turn out until you had the film developed and printed. So we've got a big advantage. We can set a camera to monochrome now and see how it's going to be. But let me know in the comments below. Let me know if there are people who you just find absolutely fascinating how they can formulate a photograph. Let me know if you feel as if you can't do that. Because as I say, there's a lot of shots I can't formulate in my mind like that. I think I'm maybe a little bit too technical. I'm good at the technical side, but maybe not the creative side. What about you? Are you a technical photographer or a creative one, or are you somewhere in between? Let me know in the details below. So that's my thoughts for today, for the second to last day in March. If you are wanting to support the channel, of course, you've always got the opportunity that you can become a Patreon patron, like these wonderful people are. And these are the people, along with the ones who buy me a coffee in the little link below or with a super thanks, these are the people who keep the channel going. And I really do appreciate everything they do, because they keep the channel up to speed. Again, if you are not a subscriber, over 60% of my viewers are not subscribers, which means that if you were to consider I've got 10,500 subscribers at the minute, if everyone who watched this hit the subscribe button, it's free, it doesn't commit you to anything, I would have about 25,000, no, about 20, how many would I have? About 25,000 maybe, subscribers with another 60% on top. Yeah, probably about that. So it would be a big boost for me, and that's the subscribe count is what I probably use as the biggest indication as to how well the channel is going. So if you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button and give me a big thumbs up if you would. Even if you don't like the video, if you give us a thumbs down, I suppose it probably shows that you've looked, but give us a thumbs up just for the sake of it. It costs you nothing, and again, you're not committed to that. I don't hold it to anything if you give me a thumbs up, but it does help the channel. So until the next time, keep taking your camera out, keep on shooting in any format you want, monochrome or colour, and keep on having fun with your photos. Till the next time, bye bye.